Okay, here we go. So everybody, we're excited.
You could open your drink. Take your drink. I know you want a drink. Take your drink.
I'm going to stop laughing at you.
Okay, are you done, Bossy Pants?
I will say on this show, I want to do that thing where they put the different types of Diet Coke in a box that you can't see.
If
Like they
people
put the
can tell
can, the
difference.
bottle, a cup from McDonald's, a cup from Chick-fil-A. I would love to test you and see if you could figure it out.
Let me say this happened today. I drove through Chick-fil-A and I got a large Diet Coke,
Of course.
and I drink it immediately now. Immediately I knew
it
something was wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's an aftertaste. If you're a true Diet Coke person, you don't feel the after. You don't have
Yep.
it. Do you drink Diet Coke?
Yes.
So
more
you
than I should.
understand.
Yes.
And I
McDonald's
knew.
is the best.
I go back in. McDonald's is the
Yes,
best.
they are.
It's next level. Do you think it's just a pinch of vanilla? I've really spent like
I
just
think it's extra syrup. Honestly.
a touch of extra syrup.
Do you know that I actually know the answer?
You do.
They are the only restaurant that gets delivered the syrup chilled. So the syrup is never room temperature. And the whole process, it stays cold.
That's
So do you think somehow that keeps it
crisp?
crisp is the word with Diet
That's
Coke.
the word.
The only thing better than McDonald's is if you've had a can in a very cold refrigerator and part of it's kind of softly frozen into a little.
Yeah.
I think I have been, and this is going to date me, but I think I've been drinking Diet Coke
Since it was invented.
since about the day it came out because my mom was drinking it.
Yeah.
My mom started it on Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Did you do Tab?
I was about to ask about Tab. My first grade teacher loved Tab. She always had a
My
Tab.
mom
I
and the
need to
Tab.
ask, when did Diet Coke come about? You want to give a guess? When do you think Diet Coke started?
1981.
I know that I for
say-
sure I remember drinking it in 96, 5, 4, 3,
Of course,
83.
Oh, 83.
I remember drinking it in 83.
You can make a whole podcast just out of this
I'm
conversation.
sure somebody has made a whole podcast about Diet Coke.
Here we go. The Coca-Cola Company introduced Diet Coke in the United States on July 8, 1982.
You were so close.
we were right
I was
there.
right there without going over.
81. I was
Yeah.
right there. Yeah, 83.
you
Right
go.
there. So, yeah, the project to create Diet Coke began in 1980 as a top secret project.
Probably to kill
Oh.
rats initially.
Yeah, to give
Yeah.
all the rats.
I think it could
cancer.
probably still kill rats.
You know,
To be
so
honest.
I guess we start the show now. Have we already? Okay, here we go.
Hello, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast from the CityRise Network. Hosted by Jennifer Dennis and produced by me, Justin Kello, we're a podcast that was supposed to be focused on parenting, but we've kind of lost the plot along the way. Honestly, we don't know what this podcast is about, but we talk to incredible people who love Jesus, and our hope is to provide encouragement and fun whenever possible. If our lack of clear direction bothers you, we apologize, but no one is making you listen to this podcast, unless you're married to Jennifer. Andy, thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited about the show. We think it's a good one, and I'm pretty sure you'll find it really meaningful. I'm here with Justin. Hey.
It looks like you had to look over and verify that I was still here.
I literally had to look over to remember he was sitting by me.
Hello, Jennifer.
You know, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine last week, and I was describing someone we both know who is a close talker. Do you have any close talkers in your life?
I might know the person that you're talking about.
No, there's several, but this person is a real close talker and they get really in my face. And I was discussing how I found myself with my head against a wall.
You couldn't go back any further.
Well, then I was just like trying to escape. And at one point I was like, oh, something's on my shoe. Like I don't know how to explain this, but I cannot stand the idea of smelling, like breathing someone else's exhale.
Yeah.
It really stresses me out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They say it's unique to this, it's odd in our culture, but they say different cultures have different standards of what's close and what isn't.
I don't
And America is a very,
we have to have,
America is a space, but there's also
We're very
cultures that
much
are very
space.
close.
But here's the deal with that. So I was telling this to this friend about it, and she comes back the next day and she goes, oh my goodness, I saw our friend. She did the same thing to me. It was so crazy. Here's how bad my memory is right now. Thank you. End of life. Menopause. If you know
don't
what I mean.
remember what she's talking about?
I have no idea who she was talking about.
Oh.
I don't remember.
Well, there you go. That's great.
That's so great. And then
That's great.
I'll run
Short
into that
memory.
other friend again soon, and they'll be in my face.
And you'll
I'll
have
be
a
like,
but you'll have a
"This
clear
is
conscience
them."
till then.
Isn't that wild that I
Yeah.
cannot remember who it is? And I didn't even ask. I didn't want to say, who's that again? Because
Yeah.
we'd done this whole bit together.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I see that you every once in a while, Jennifer, you reemerge on TikTok. You'll
I did.
ignore it forever. And then suddenly I'll see you in your car with your glasses. You'll pull them up and you'll make a comment.
Right.
What is the motivation? What's bringing you in and out? Like what stirs up and you're like, I need to post on TikTok.
Why the random? I will say this, after the election, it really
that may have been the first one. I think I did see that. And it was meaningful. It was encouraging
and
people.
I didn't get a lot of people. It's fine. You can't be worried about who watches. But no matter what side you're on of an election, it's never easy to see people suffer.
Sure, yeah.
And so no matter what side you're on, it's hard to see people kind of devastated in their lives and not know where to go. And being someone who's older, I've been through so many elections. Yeah. Like I've sat there and cried with my family. I felt like it's the end of the world. There have been elections where I thought tomorrow we're definitely entering into a nuclear war.
Yeah.
We're going to, there's so much fear mongering that goes into an election building up to one. And I just felt sad. I wanted to say, man, we go through this all the time. This is going to be okay. You're going to be okay. This is what we're going to do. And that was what prompted that. Yeah. And then I thought, well, I guess I could post again. Yeah. I got 2 comments.
But you're saying you feel like you're not getting enough. Let me tell you this. 90,000 followers on TikTok. I can't get more than 500 views.
90,000 followers
is busted. The system is broken
now somehow.
It is, and I was watching a podcast from someone who has millions of followers, and they said the exact same thing. They say we don't like posting on TikTok anymore because it's not happening. Like no one sees what you're posting. They said it's literally just a gamble that anybody will even see what you're doing.
I think it's less than a gamble now. I think you can actually pay to boost your posts.
That's right.
You can now pay to boost your posts, and if you're selling something, that will get boosted.
Oh yeah, the algorithm has shifted to TikTok Shop for sure. If you're not selling something,
it's so much. It used to be really cool, and now it's so much. Buy this, get this. You have to have this, and then they connect good content into you got to buy this. Or any experts are now like they tell you these incredible things about longevity of life or how to be your best self. And at the end of every one of those videos now is a supplement, a vitamin, where you have to get it from this lab because it's been tested and it's the most potent. Yeah, and so. It's funny because I don't think any of our listeners are actually on TikTok, but I am here to say to you, I've got to have some TikTok accountability. And I realize that I don't use it so much. I think I disappear into TikTok. Sure. I think rather than Facebook, people say all the time, like, oh, I can't even be on social media. It gives me anxiety. And I'm like, I'm completely opposite because for me, it's an escape. Yeah. Because I don't compare my life on TikTok. You don't compare your life. It's like you're like getting to see everyone's life all over the world. It's all these different.
Did you go down the aliens in the ocean rabbit hole?
I am terrified. I'm terrified.
That took over TikTok over the weekend, man.
I could not do it. I cannot be stressed out about aliens popping up in the ocean. That really concerns me.
Really? I mean, they've been there a while if they have been. So what are you worried about? They don't care about us.
They've got very poor time management.
Yeah. I think what I think is funny on TikTok is people are talking about the timing of it. It's like anytime something goes wrong in America, they've planned these. They plan these weird Senate hearings to where it's like, yeah, aliens exist, or oh yeah, Robert, John F. Kennedy was actually, and like they plan these weird testimonies right as things are crazy, almost as like a distraction from what's crazy. This was the week after the election. They're like, hey, how can we take the heat off of kind of politics? Well, let's just start talking about. It seems like they're doing it on purpose,
right? It does feel like there's some kind of a.
Yeah, like let's control the narrative. Like let's get people distracted by aliens while everything else is happening.
Yeah, I couldn't go down that rabbit hole. It stresses me too much. Yeah. And I'll be honest. I'll be real clear right now. I'm not really big into ocean life, and I know some people
already. So now you're less. Now you're even less interested.
The bottom of octopus. Yeah. I can't. Yeah. Yeah. And that stuff crawling real slow at the bottom of the ocean. I can't. Yeah. And then the stuff with stuff living on it in the ocean, like live things with live things living on it. Yeah. Oh, I can't.
Unrelated to the ocean, something going on in my life that I'd make sure that you know about.
Oh my goodness.
Is we just finished up.
What kind of transition?
Softball season.
Okay, here we go.
And I wanted to share this with you because it's absolutely insane. This is 8U, which is 8 and under girls softball.
Okay.
It's the type of competition where if a team can catch a ball, you're like, oh, this team's got it together. We're going to lose to them. Like that.
Right.
That's the scale of how good these girls are. Basically, they can hit the ball and sometimes they can catch it. It's that low stakes. There is one team that apparently every season, what they do is, because when you're filling out to apply, you say, what nights of the week are you available?
Mm-hmm.
And there's one coach who literally scouts members and says, hey, put Tuesday night as your only night that you can practice. And that means all the best girls will be on my team.
Oh.
And this guy is scheming
That's
season after season to dominate girls softball in a city recreation league. And they do. They won this past weekend. They took it all. But they beat a team that is also terrible, apparently, because we played them. And at one point, their third base coach got thrown out of the game by the umpire because of his unsportsmanlike conduct.
Is this not
For 8 under girls? Like people, and I posted on threads about it, and someone was like, "Well, you should see what's coming." I was like, "Yeah, in travel ball, when you're paying $100,000, like $1,000, I understand people getting upset.
I did,
but for city league softball, you got thrown out of the game."
First of all, I agree. That's ridiculous.
It's insane.
That's ridiculous. And I don't know what we're it's like this is preparing the kids. This is getting them ready. For what?
At one point, one of our players got hurt. She ran into somebody getting to home base. She didn't make it to home base. She's on the ground crying. Multiple moms and grandmas on this other team were saying, tag her, while this girl is down crying. They're like, well, you can still get her out. Make sure you get her out before they help her. Like, insane for 8 and up. I was like, I cannot understand.
Has Maggie enjoyed the season?
Maggie loves it. She played with a broken pinky. She loves it so much. Like, she broke her pinky playing Gaga Ball at school a couple weeks ago. And my first concern was when she broke her pinky, I was like, oh, you can't play. I said, oh, you can't play games now. And I was talking about video games. And Kristen was like, oh, yeah, no, softball. We're not sure. I was like, oh, I didn't think about softball. Like, I literally, that's how little I care about organized sports. But Maggie loves it. And Kristen also loves it. So they found something that they can
I love that.
Really be invested in together.
Well, that is wild that they game the system.
It's
like that.
wild. You didn't play softball. You played soccer, right?
No, I played soccer.
Probably a little bit
Very
less
slowly.
it's a little bit less intense, I guess.
I think so. We weren't in a community like this that was intense. And it was in high school and it was at high school. So
and you probably were by high school, it's pretty clear the best and the worst teams. There's not a lot of fighting with the refs at that point. Because
soccer's pretty intense.
Oh, is it really?
It's really intense. I will say this. When I joined the soccer team, it was only the second year that I ever even had soccer.
Oh, okay.
So we weren't rolling in an expectation. It was oh, they have girls soccer.
Was this in Mississippi?
This is in Florida.
Okay.
It was just becoming a thing.
I was about to say soccer in Mississippi probably is still not a thing.
It is a thing now, Justin. But yes, the intensity of the fans with soccer is really intense. Okay. It's crazy.
I think for some reason, there is a type of parent who gets into it. And I think there's other types of parents who literally couldn't care less.
Well, they have a little bit more balance in their lives.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more.
I am listening to podcasts during softball games is what I'm doing.
Right.
That's how I'm
probably
engaging.
the healthier way to be.
I'm showing up, I'm cheering when it's appropriate, and then I am checking out because I do not care what happens on that field.
Yeah. There you go. I think that's good. I think there's a lot of health in that. Yeah. Speaking of a lot of health in that.
Yeah.
Today we have a wonderful guest who is going to talk to us about getting through grief. So today we're really excited about our guest. It will kind of seem like a sad topic, but we have a funny person. So it's actually going to even itself out. And we're going to tell you all about everything to do with why we have Lori Bisson today on the show. Lori, welcome.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hooray.
So Lori, welcome. We have had our times together because you always come and help volunteer for VBS.
Yes, I do.
And I mean, it's weeks of prep. And so we've had a lot of
yes, it is.
Good time. It is.
It's a full-time job with no time pay.
Exactly. Well, but today you're going to begin a study, I believe, soon. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I do not want to misspeak about the topic.
Yeah. So today I'm here to talk about a ministry called Grief Share that is done all over the world. And it's a program that helps people who've lost somebody they love process their grief with the help of Jesus. And it's a beautiful program. Yeah.
That sounds really beautiful. And let me say, Some people, they either refuse or cannot or get caught stuck, cannot process grief. And life goes on.
Yep.
And a lot of times you've got to have someone to walk that through.
Absolutely.
Because regular life, regular world, they're ready for you to move on in a week. They're like, okay, it's been a week. What, you need to be back at work. Let's get going.
Right.
So tell us about what this program looks like. What can someone expect?
Yeah. So Grief Share, I think the core premise is that God is the most helpful resource in processing your grief. And so it's a 13-week program where people who are all in the similar experience of having lost someone that's really important in their life are trying to work together and with the Lord to process grief. And so it contains a workbook that has almost a Bible study aspect to pull what Scripture has to say about healthy ways to process grief, alongside a lot of video content where other people who have been through a tragedy or a tragic loss are sharing how they overcame their grief and moved through grief. So I've done a significant amount of time with an organization called Bo's Place here in town. That's a great grief recovery program, but it's not faith-based, right? And so the difference between other programs and Grief Share is that they really believe you can heal from your grief with God's help. And there's a lot more hope, I think, in that kind of approach than you get in a more, maybe worldly approach to dealing with grief.
The hard thing is when people do lose someone in their life, there's a season of blaming God. They're angry with God. They pull away from God. And it's like in this moment where you were devastated, it's one of these seasons where people are just like, you know what, God, we prayed for this to happen. You didn't answer the prayer. I don't know if I didn't have enough faith or you don't care or if it's a bigger picture, but we're done here for a while. And I think that that's so hard to walk in that deep of grief with also grievance against God.
I know I did. When we had our loss, we lost twin girls, our first pregnancy. And I had gone through my entire life thinking I was specially loved by God because my life had looked pretty great, up until that point. And all of a sudden, he took away the thing in life that I wanted the most, and that 1,000 people were praying wouldn't happen. And it happened. And it just felt like God went, okay. And that, for me, what I was then processing was the grief and the loss of the foundation of my whole life at one time, right? And I honestly think the loss of that feeling like God loved me was harder to process than losing my girls. And so it was a, tooth and nail, clawing my way back through it, arguing with God, dealing with God, wrestling with God, almost like a Jacob situation, to get back to a place where I could say, he loves me. And I know that. But I also think on the flip side, part of what's cool about Grief Share is it's going to draw people from outside the church in a time where their heart is raw and open and ready to consider spiritual things that maybe they've never been willing to consider before because they've never needed it before.
Wow. Right? I think this could be so powerful for people. And truthfully, grief is such a difficult thing because in your life, like work and in your community, people get to where they don't know what to say.
Oh, they never
know
what to say.
So they quickly, either they're saying the wrong thing, they're saying nothing, or they're pulling back a little bit because they feel uncomfortable and they don't want to mess up. So a lot of times people who are walking through grief feel really isolated.
Ignored
so when
isolated.
You move to a place where you're actually allowed to really open it up and talk with other people, I mean, that has to be just incredibly just affirming and so comforting.
Yeah. My aunt and uncle, they lost their son when he was 16 in a tragic accident. And I was pretty young when it happened. But later she told me that months after, she was walking with a friend and her friend was just like, when are you just going to move past this? And it's just crazy that somebody would say that, but they don't know what else. They literally don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to handle it. And so to hear someone say that about, I was like, it's just if she had this sort of space, I'm thinking this is, 25 years ago, if she had this sort of space where everyone is also in the same spot, I think that's the problem is you're in grief and you're talking to someone who isn't, but this program is specifically to bring people in the same kind of life stage together. So there is none of that disconnect between what it feels like and what you think should be going on. They're all in it together. So I really like that.
You think, I think I'm going crazy. I don't think this is the right reaction to what just happened to me, right? And it is, right? It will be a normal reaction. And having someone else in the room say, I feel the same way, it just makes you feel, oh, okay.
Less alone, for sure.
Yeah. And people get tired of listening to their story. And yet people who are in grief need to tell it over, and they need to. They need to talk about it. They need to say their person's name. They need to cry. They need to do all those things. And a group that is all coming together just to process this gives them a place to do it safely, confidentially, and in a way that they feel understood.
One of my dear friends, her husband passed away a couple of years ago. And in our discussions, it's been a really it's been a hard, healing for her.
Yeah, of course.
But what I thought was interesting, for the first time, I could see grief as almost like something separate from something you could control. Like grief is not just feelings you have. It hits you at random places.
Yes.
Grief takes over when you're not expecting it. It's almost like this power that you can't manage. I never really understood it as that.
And we also, if you've not been through grief, you do not understand the physical aspects, right? The exhaustion that comes with grief, that I can't sleep or I can't wake up. I can't, I'm exhausted. I'm fatigued. I can't eat. There's pain. I can remember at the earliest stages, it felt like a physical thing was in my chest, just trying to breathe, right? Grief it just impacts everything. And you're absolutely right. It's not a straight line. Like we want it to keep getting better and better and better, but it'll do this to people. And then the downward turn again is very shocking, and hard to process. And it's just helpful for people to hear that that's going to be normal. Right?
So what was the impetus for you beginning this? I did look it up. That is a word.
Did you participate in this group before as a participant? Or?
You know what? I didn't participate in this group. Well, I was really, really blessed to sell a company that I was working for and get to do early retirement. And as I was
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been years. But as I was in that process, I started thinking about, okay, I get to use my time in a way that I want to use my time, right? And I wanted that to be meeting people's needs, right? And so I do some other things, but when you look back on your life and you see the things that God has brought you through, it's to prepare you for what he has for you, and I started to kind of evaluate that and then get really serious about how to help grieving people. And I felt really like it was really important for me to go get some training and not get turned loose on people, because I think you can do a lot of damage to people that are really already hurting, right? So I didn't want to do harm. I wanted to do good. Right. And so I went to DuBois Place where they gave me tons of training. I did that, I'm still doing that. But the problem there is I think the most important thing you can do to heal is to work with God on your healing. And that's not what they do. And so my heart for the last 3 years has been to try to get Grief Share off the ground. And Kristen Campbell approached me about, hey, would you consider this? And I'm like, as a matter of fact. And I've been praying about that for 3 years. For 3 years.
She approached you. That is wild, Lori.
Yeah. So I've been praying about it for 3 years and preparing for it, right? Behind the scenes. Because I've seen it help people. I watch people in my group go from, they can't form a sentence to smiling, right? And it's really the magic of having been with other people in the same set of circumstances.
So these people, is this generally lost by death, or do you find people who
it's always lost by death, right?
So it's not like people who've been through divorce or
no. There's another
we
group
do have
for that.
divorce care.
I mean, right?
We do have that group. I was just making sure it's uniquely for
it's
people
uniquely
who've
for
lost
people
death.
who've lost a person, right? So because pet loss is hard, but it's not the same kind of loss,
right? Absolutely not.
And divorce is hard, but it's a different kind of loss. And
True.
so it's better for people who are going through divorce to be in a group with other people going through divorce and deal with the kinds of issues that come out of that. And so that's why we have divorce care. Right?
Yeah, I love this idea of inviting Jesus into this because in scripture, the shortest verse, everybody's like, oh, I memorized a verse. Jesus wept. It was specifically in a grief context. It was specifically Lazarus had died. The sisters were like, where were you? And he stepped into that space, not to solve that immediately, but to cry, like to grieve with those people. And so this idea of, you saw the importance of managing grief, but you saw the disconnect between leaving Jesus out of the process and bringing him in, because even in scripture, it shows he wants to be part of that process. And he is not just there sympathetically, he is there empathetically. Like he is feeling it the same way, so much so that he wept. So I think that's a really cool thing.
I think even cooler, I brought this verse with me because it just means so much to me as we ramp this ministry up. But Isaiah 61 talks about and describes Jesus and what he's coming as Messiah to do for us. And there's many things. It says, I'm coming to bind up the brokenhearted. I am coming to heal the hurting, to, this is the coolest part, to comfort those who mourn and to grant those who mourn in Zion a beautiful headdress instead of ashes, an oil of gladness instead of mourning, right? He's coming to restore people who are hurting, right? Who are mourning, right? And
in the verse that you give, it's so important to realize that those, instead of a headdress is ashes, that mourning is an identity. Like it is a big deal. It's not just I've lost this. This is like my whole life has been interrupted. Like I don't know how to move forward. So for God in that verse to talk about to remove the ashes and give you a headdress this is about your identity. It's healing your identity.
Yes. And the very end of the verse is so that they may be called oaks of righteousness, right? So it's like complete restoration from something that feels like you might never recover. And only God can do that, right?
Amen. That's good. Wow, Lori, this is really good and great stuff. Now you tell us how to get involved in the group. When does it begin? When do you guys have it?
Yeah. So we're going to be starting in January. Our first group here with the church is going to start in January. It goes for 13 weeks. And if you have a heart, right, to serve people that are hurting, come talk to Kristen, come talk to me. We need some more help, right? Just to keep the group moving. If you know somebody that is hurting because they've lost someone, send them our way, right? You just go find us on the griefshare.org website, and we're going to be listed as an option for people. We're going to meet during the daytime. We chose that primarily because all the other churches around us are a nighttime option. So we wanted to make sure that, we were making this program available to people at different times. And so, we need more help to run the ministry. You don't have to necessarily facilitate. You can just be a greeter and a hospitality person, right?
Now, will it be on a Wednesday?
It's going to be on, gosh, that's a good question. I think we're doing Tuesdays at 1.
And if that's not correct, CityRise.org/events has all of our activities in a calendar format, kind of a sequential list. And so you may not see at the top of the list, but when you scroll down into January, you're going to see the first meeting of this group. And then you can click on the links there to register as well. We also said griefshare.org is a place where you can go and search. Is it listed with Westview Baptist, you think?
It is listed with Westview Baptist. Great. And you just type in your zip code and it'll find all the
beautiful
groups close to you. Yeah. But, we would love to be there for anybody that needs something like this program.
Yeah. I think this is really beautiful.
I have a question about, not related to that, but how did you get involved in our church? You've always been here in my memory since I came. So I'd love to hear how you got plugged in at our Bel Air campus, right?
Yep, we are CityRise Bel Air.
CityRise Bel Air.
Do I get bonus points for getting that right?
You do.
Yeah. So I have kids that were getting ready to head into middle school, and we'd been at the church that we were in before for 20 years, and we just felt like we needed to be in a community-based church where our kids would have community around them, where it didn't take 30 minutes to get across the town.
No joke.
And
good.
So, the thing is, we came here for our kids, but every day I'm so thankful for the community that we found in this church. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch a church walk out what you're supposed to be as a church all the time. It's just cool.
I get to usually see you on Sunday mornings as you guys enter in.
Yeah.
Lori's one of my favorite dressers. I have a few people that I love what they wear every. Kristen Campbell's one.
Yeah.
Lori's one. There's somebody else. I have a few people that I'm like, man, whatever they're wearing, I would immediately put on. Immediately.
Wow. Cool.
Except that I have to wear it.
Yeah.
If you put it on, I'd be naked.
Right. Right. That's an excellent point. That's why I usually don't do that.
That's the number one reason. The thing you said about our church being a community church is so huge, and it's such a strength of our church campuses. I've heard we've got a lot of great churches in Houston, but I hear story after story, people saying like, yeah, it was great, but we only saw our church friends on that Sunday because everybody lived 45 minutes away from each other. Right. And one of the strengths of our campuses, we are really, really neighborhood churches. I mean, that's what we are. And that's what is good about us being in different locations is if you're in the Bel Air area or Meyerland, there's a space right for you, Westview, now Missouri City. I love that you mentioned that as a strength because I believe it is a strength. This idea of being able to live life with people during the week that also go to your church, being able to show up to a Wednesday night activity and not taking 45 minutes to get across town.
Absolutely.
I love that our student ministry brought your family here. And I hear that story over and over is we came for the kids and we didn't know how much we'd be blessed. Like
it's true.
It's like the motivation was we want our children to get plugged in and then suddenly everyone's plugged in. And I'm telling you, I hear that story a lot from parents who come for their kids and then realize, wow, there's something for all of us here. It's not just for kids.
Well, I think our church is such a lovely size too. I mean, it's a size where I can pretty much recognize all the faces on Sunday. And now I know a lot of those people, and not just their name, but their story and what's going on in their life. And you know, it's beautiful.
I love it.
It really is. It really is. So speaking of beautiful, we now have our last question of the interview.
Great.
And it's just kind of a random. I don't know if you've heard the show, Lori, to put you on the spot.
She puts everyone on the spot. It's like, do you listen to our show? Yes.
I do it just that aggressively. Okay. Well, is Thanksgiving coming up on the show?
No,
Will
it's
it
already passed. It's almost Christmas, really. It'll be like the first week of December or so, I think.
So we're kind of talking about Christmas now.
So I ruined it.
No, don't ruin it. It's just always, I love the time travel piece.
Yeah.
But nobody wants
I was thinking about the time travel thing. It's so funny because we always talk about the weather. And it's 2 weeks later. It's not like we're a morning show where someone can be listening like, oh, I heard on, the podcast that it's going to be this today. Like we're literally 2 weeks behind. So no matter what we say it is today, it is
people are like,
absolutely not helpful to anybody
remember
listening.
that day. It was really beautiful. It was really beautiful outside. That's so true. Okay. So as we lean into the holidays, I always think it's fun to think about that as we ask each other questions.
Sure.
And I think we're going on break soon.
Probably. I don't know. We're trying to, I think I don't know. Maybe we do one before the new year.
Who in your life couldn't get it right on your gift this year? Who in your life will get your present, a Christmas present, correct for you this year?
Sorry. I have so many snarky things to say right now, but I'm going to sit on that. Who's going to get it right?
Always.
You know who's going to get it right? My mom is going to get it right because she makes me send her links to exactly what to buy me.
That's great.
So she can't mess it up.
That's great.
Right?
That's
My mom is going to get it right this year.
Totally
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Justin?
Man, I'm at the age and of the gender where you don't really get a lot of presents for some reason. Nobody.
Are you living in a post-present world?
Yeah. I mean, there's many Christmases where there's nothing for me to open, which sounds sad, but it's like,
but it doesn't sound like you're sad about it.
If I want it, I buy it.
If you want it.
And then for me and Kristen, I'll just give you all this tip. We talked to Santa about stuffing stockings. I don't know. I don't know who's listening to this, but we work very closely with Santa to make sure the stockings are correct.
Yes.
And for Kristen and me, what we did last year, and it really was incredible, is we both filled out a Secret Santa questionnaire, which are those things like, what's your favorite color, your favorite food, your favorite whatever. And so we filled it out. And then when you're helping Santa stuff the stocking, you have a list, not necessarily of like, this is exactly what I want, but the kind of like small gifts that you can
beautiful.
So it really made it easier for both of us to walk into a store confident that we're going to walk out with something that they actually want. It probably doesn't work for big presents, but for little things, it was actually a really great way to get to that. This
is a random story about Aaron. He's our worship leader at CityRise Bel Air. I don't know if you know about this story, but some random package arrived for Aaron. It was like It was like maybe a box of Cheerios.
Yeah, just a random thing that he hadn't
thing.
ordered. Yeah.
He didn't order it, and he sent us out a text and said, hey, guys, did somebody order Fruit Loops? They landed on my doorstep. I'm not sure where these came from. Well, instead of like owning it, nobody says a word, and someone in the team starts a different chat, and everybody decides to send random things to Aaron over the next several weeks. So every time Aaron comes to church, he's like, I got another package.
Yeah.
Like every week.
And it was satisfying because it legitimately got him. Like Aaron's really smart. And so a prank like that where he didn't seem to suspect at all that it was staff.
People were sending the most wild, weird
like
stuff.
white elephant gifts, the things that like you can only find on Amazon.
What?
Yeah.
And he comes to work and he's like, y'all, this package. And finally it came clean.
Somebody confessed.
I think it was for his birthday. And so on his birthday, they told him what was going on.
Maybe that was it.
That's great.
Yeah. But I did it. That was
Do you remember what you
funny.
bought him?
Andy bought him some finger claws, where there was like it's like a wolf and your hands are like little wolf. Anyway, it was like a finger, like a finger puppet for a wolf.
But that's like the long con. You guys ran the long con.
They really
loved that. He loved it. All of that to say, the person who's going to get it right for me this year, and I sit there listening to you, Justin, I may be in close to the same boat. That we're kind of getting post-Christmas present.
Like, will Olivia buy you something? Like, okay. Because my wife still feels obligated to buy a gift for both of her parents. Like, she has to buy them a present.
I do too.
Absolutely.
But you're saying that didn't pass on to Olivia.
No, not yet. I don't think she's at the stage yet.
Okay.
I'm getting the cards that say I love you so much, and one day I'll get you presents.
Please send money.
Yeah, like no, I think that you're right. I don't know who would get it right, but I will say the closest people would be at my, but nobody.
I think Olivia would know. She may not buy it, but I think Olivia would know what to get you.
She may know.
I think if someone was trying to surprise you with a gift and they asked Olivia, what do you think your mom would like? She would have really good answers.
Well, my birthday's coming up next week.
There you go.
And so we'll see. We'll see if anybody gets close.
Kristen's birthday is December 19th.
Yeah,
so
we're both December. Are you a December birth?
I am not. I'm a July birth.
Oh, perfect. Right in the middle. Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
That is
right
perfect.
in the middle of the year.
It is.
I'm just lumped on top of Christmas.
Hey, listen, it's hard for you. It's hard for the spouses too.
My
I
parents
just came up with an idea and now I'm going to have another one.
My mom used to lie to me. Well, she wouldn't call it a lie, but she tried to convince me that my birthday was a month away from Christmas.
Oh.
And I'm like, look, Mom, we're doing calendaring activities at school. Mm-hmm. It really seems like 10 days.
Yeah.
10 or 12 days.
Mom.
Yeah.
And Mom's like, no, it's like a month. And she wanted to draw it out because she felt so bad that it was so close.
Yeah.
And we finally figured it out.
Finally.
Probably 7th grade, though, sadly enough.
No, the December birthdays have a unique cross to bear, and I feel bad for y'all. But.
Well, I'll tell you what, Lori, we've loved having you on the show today.
It's been fun.
And bless your heart, you're one of the people that got absolutely no questions. Except I just looked at you and said, this is what we're going to talk about.
What a pro.
And you did an amazing job.
Incredible.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. If you want to learn more about this ministry, like we said, if you go to griefshare.org, which I hope is correct, you can find it just based on location, or cityrise.org/events is where she just spilled soda everywhere. Is where cityrise.org/events is where all of our activities live. And so if you scroll down chronologically, you'll get to January, and that's where this is going to be, where you can register for that. If you have any people that you think we should talk to on this podcast, email us at podcast@cityrise.org. Like, subscribe, rate, review, all those things. And that's all I have.
That's all we have. Thank you guys for joining us today. We hope you've had an almost amazing time. Oh, thank you, Lori, for being here. We hope you've had an almost amazing time on the Almost Amazing Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Almost Amazing Podcast from the CityRise Network based in Houston, Texas. CityRise is a partnership of church campuses, nonprofits, and missionaries devoted to lifting our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information or to find a church campus close to you in the Houston area, visit cityrise.org.